Hey, there's a recap of an interview recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
He's a friend of Joe Rogan's and has a podcast called Flagrant, and he's made himself a lightning rod of a different talking points in the last year. But as Triple H is doing the WWE press for WWE WrestleMania this year, he had a statement I wanted to get your take on. The internet is not real life, Triple H told Andrew Schultz on Flagrant. The bitching and complaining that is on there is not real life. You can read the internet and it'll sound like this thing is dead. I'll use Cody as the example. Quote, Cody's already jumped the shark. He's dead as a babyface, end quote. Really? I'm in an arena with 10,000 people every night going ape shit for him. He's selling the most merchandise. Sure, whatever you want to say on the internet. The beautiful thing for our business, unlike a movie or a TV show or even a book, is we have a focus group every night. As we begin to tell these stories, quote unquote, this is working, this is not working, end quote. Whether people are bitching online, the reaction of people live, like Jey Uso is terrible, what are they doing? They're yeeting the merch, the reaction of the crowd, everything he does. It's just the opinion of a few people. Now, this has some people chatting online saying, oh, there is no internet wrestling community. It's all just wrestling fans and they're all online. Triple H is saying that is not the case. There is a vocal minority online, but we judge our focus group based on paying customers who are in the seats every night, as opposed to the people who aren't buying anything and are on Twitter. That's the synopsis. Where do you land on that, Jeff?
You know what? And it goes back to, I mean, look, at the TNA days, the amount of conversations that I had, and I was obviously, leading the ship, captain of the ship, if you will. And then, I've done, gosh, Conrad, I've done so many seminars. I got to tell you, I worked out in the wrestling ring Sunday, Conrad, with some folks. That's another conversation. But I got into the conversation a little bit there. And I always go back to this, Conrad, because it may sound really, I don't want to say old school. It may sound not applicable, like, oh, that doesn't really relate here. But I still say, oh yeah, it does. It does relate in the experience that I had in the first 7 years of my business working the territories, in that at the end of the day, if you have a paying customer, and that's where it gets to be a gray area, because people online, how do you know? Look, it's impossible to know that if they're paying or not. So you always have to go to your bottom line, and black ink over red ink, no wiggle room there. But you also have the other metrics, barometers, ratings, demos, live event gates, so ticket sales, pay-per-view buys. You got to use all of them. But when I go back to, the Nashville Saturday nights, Louisville on Tuesday nights, Evansville on Wednesday night, obviously Monday after the TV on Saturday morning. But when I go back and look at those regular towns, many, many, many times I'm the babyface, or Lawler's the babyface, or whoever was on the babyface side. You would have some really vocal, we call them heel fans, boo birds, people that went against the grain, that really wanted to be a part of the show at times, but they were vocal about it. And then, sometimes you would have and you wanted, as obviously as a heel, to kind of gravitate toward people raising hell. As a heel, you didn't want cheers. A babyface, you didn't want boos. What I'm trying to say is, and sometimes you got a little both. But at the end of the day, there would be some folks that were, but would lash out, and that's one example of that type of fan. Then you'd also have folks that would call in to the switchboard on Saturday mornings at Memphis TV, Conrad, and they literally would just say, I'm never watching again. It's the worst program I've ever seen. I don't know how Eddie Marlin or Jerry Jarrett or Jerry Lawler have the balls to put this kind of stuff on the air. And sometimes they're talking about an angle. Sometimes they're just calling to gripe. But you have people writing in letters. So the letter writers, the people who call the switchboard, and the boo birds, yes, they were the vocal minority. But I do believe it's a voice. The thing that I think it's the gray area that I touched on is, who do you know who's paying and who's not paying? But I think you have to listen to all of them and still go back to your, not just gut, but there's a part of kind of using your ear. And Triple H is referencing them going crazy for Cody or Jey Uso, the Yeet and all that. Yes, I think that is a great barometer. At the end of the day, I've always said, and will always say, you have to go back to what does the cash register say, black ink over red ink. But I don't think you can dismiss it completely under any stretch of the imagination, because if you do, you're dismissing part of your audience. Again, tough call, but I think you need to listen to everybody and learn how to take the input. And look, I'm not saying go in one area out the other. You just got to learn and say, okay, that's their opinion. I'm going to move on.
It's interesting to try to read between the tea leaves a little bit here, read between the lines in some of these interviews that Triple H is doing. Of course, I feel like that's probably a necessary step for the company, for him to be out front right now. We're only a year and change removed from it being made official, I guess, that Vince is gone all the way. So you need someone out there who can sort of sell WWE and be the face of WWE, much like Dana White is for the UFC, I suppose. That feels like a TKO or maybe Ari Emanuel thing. We need to have some sort of face that runs the place, a talking head, the spirit animal of the promotion. I guess this makes sense. I know some people were saying, I don't remember
Vince saying, yeah, I've seen that.
All of those sort of things. But also, too, I remember during the Vince era, when Jimmy Fallon came calling for WWE, well, we would send him Roman or John Cena or what have you. And now it feels like, no, we're sending Triple H. And I feel like that is just simply carbon copying the Dana White playbook. Would you agree with that?
Conrad, that because there's been more debate or chatter online that I didn't even really, maybe I wasn't aware of it, but I guess the thing that's interesting in that, I'd have to agree with you. Think it's the TKO playbook, and I do think that potentially has its pluses and minuses, because MMA and professional wrestling, we ain't the same. No two ways about it. Are there some similarities? Maybe back in, but as far as presenting and look, so we'll kind of give two sides of it. Look at the NFL. What's the commissioner's name? Jesus, Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is the commissioner of the league, and so makes all the high level business decisions, and obviously he has his owners. But he would be the face, all that. But when they're promoting, the Super Bowl, you don't see Goodell. He's not in that vein. And when you pick your favorite director or whatever it may be on a movie, you don't really see. Yes, you do in some press clippings and all that, but you see the lead actor always out front. And so I think as far as monetizing the brand, I would always lean into, whether it was UFC, and I don't think UFC talent, there's where I think the difference is. I don't think UFC fighters, unless you're a Tito or a Colby Covington, or I'm just or Conor McGregor, guys that really know how to sell their brand in their fight. A lot of times fighters, that isn't what they're schooled to do. That isn't what they're brought up to do. They're literally trained to go out and get the victory. Professional wrestling, it is what we're from the day we get in this business. The number one important thing is to create revenue. And so that's where I kind of think we're two different animals. And so if we're selling WrestleMania, I can see the argument that, hey man, get your, and I'm not saying baby faces, I'm saying get your top talent out there and let them sell the product, sell the match, sell the event, sell the pageantry. That to me is something that yes, it's a TKO, or I assume it's a good analogy, but I'm not sure it translates between MMA and professional wrestling.
I'm going to disagree. I think it makes a lot of sense that Triple H would be in that spot because we've always heard for the past several years that WWE has tried to put the brand first. And the UFC tried to do that, and they've done it to a certain extent successfully. The idea is the old boxing model used to be, Mayweather, so and so. It was two names, and they got the lion's share. We're now in an environment where we're trying to deliver shareholder value. Boxing never had to think about that. So I think it's smart to make Dana White sort of the star and talking head and salesman and face of UFC because he ain't going anywhere. And probably the same can be said of Triple H versus if you have a talent who goes down or they retire or whatever, now you've got to get that momentum and start over a relationship with the fans differently. But I was noticing that I do feel like it's an about face from Vince, and I wondered, hey, why? And part of the reason I thought that is, well, any journalist, they could ask Vince about a whole variety of things that he may not want to talk about when he's really there to plug or promote something else.
Yep.
All the negative stuff that's happened on his watch over the last 40 years in WWE. But with Triple H, he's sort of just now getting the reins. So anything that happened under the old regime, he can easily sort of say, well, that was then and this is now, and keep things on task. And of course, as long as we steer clear of any major controversies, I don't see why we can't continue for that to work. I mean, even when Dana had a controversy a few years ago, I mean, there was a video that was very unpleasant that was made public, and I felt like, ooh, that might be cancellation Jones for him. That was not the case,
Nope.
and now it's like not even a major talking point for those who cover MMA anymore. I just think it's a different era, and I think it shows you a sign of the times maybe that Triple H is the guy.
Well, and the thing that the pro side of it is the reimagining of the product.
Yes.
And I totally get that. My thought, let's use Cody or Punk or Roman or whoever you wanted to put out there, is that they're, yes, the brand, I get all that. And you refer to them as talking heads. So if we want a talking head podcast, and look, we're going to get into the weeds here, but promoting the show, put the guys in the ring out there to me, because that's why I think if we have confidence in Cody or Roman or whoever that may be to create the most viewed, I think that's the phrase that'll probably be used, the most viewed WrestleMania of all time. Put the guy out there that you're counting on people to tune in to see. That was, and look, talking heads, reimagining the brand, there's 1,000 reasons to do it. I think it's just very interesting as you came out and said, it's a TKO thing, assuming, and I'm not saying you're assuming, but the UFC and WWE should be promoted the same way. And I definitely disagree there.